Hi there, welcome to the Closing Bell on the 13th of August. Today I'm going to have a little chat about copper and finish up by showing you a stock that I think is looking pretty interesting. We had BHP lob a bid on Oz Minerals. They flew to the upside, people expecting they'll probably up their bid a bit further. A lot of the copper stocks on the ASX starting to have a bit of a run. Copper prices also bouncing, but I think that BHP bid just putting the feelers out to the market that these assets are looking attractive and who could be the next takeover target as people try to build up their resources, and knowing that this next decade or so, copper is a pretty big story. So I just thought I'd show you the long-term picture in copper just right now, show you where all the key levels are, and then I'll finish up by showing you a stock that I think you want to have a look at and read up on. It's sort of stock for people that are thinking about, what's the next 5-10 years? What's the stock I can park some money in that I know is going to survive, that will definitely reap rewards over time and could be a hell of a lot higher in 5-10 years. It's that sort of long-term investment. And with the markets weak at the moment, this is the sort of thing you're thinking about. Rather than jumping on the little piddlers out there trying to make 100%, we're starting to see some value in real quality stocks that will survive. And that's the sort of thing you want to be putting in the bottom drawer when you get the opportunity to jump on them, because often you don't get a chance and you've really got to pay up for these sort of stocks. So let's just jump to the copper price. We'll have a quick look at that and then I'll show you the stock. So just looking here at a very long-term picture of copper. This is a monthly chart. You can see going back to prior to 2000. And we're just going to try to simplify what we're seeing here. So I want you to focus on these major waves that we've seen to the upside. Here, they're both about the same. There's that low there. We've got this another wave to the upside. You can see what's going on here, where copper has these big, long-term, strong bull markets that last for multiple years. Everything gets overextended. We have whatever, an economic problem or what have you, oversupplied. The music stops and then copper gets hammered. And I just want to show you the way that it moves, thinking about these major waves and what I look at, which is the buy zone of those major waves, that being a 75 to 87% retracement of the prior wave. So if we just follow along, looking at how copper's moved, these massive rallies, the very sharp collapse in price that occurs back into the buy zone, that 75 to 87.5% retracement area. And then look at that, the next wave occurs, very strong rally. We have the false break of that prior high and the music stops. And then we have another big sell-off, multiple year sell-off. Where does that sell-off go to? There's the 75 to 87% retracement of this next wave. There we are there. Again, had a rally, took off, but this one couldn't carry on. And it's fallen back into the buy zone again. And then we've had this next wave. So that was the 2020 crash that forced it back to retest those lows. So we've had, another massive wave to the upside. And again, we're seeing, history repeat, where you see the retest of the previous major high, prices nudging above there. That's the false break that ultimately occurs where it can't carry on. And once it fails back below that high, here we have the dramatic fall as economies now saying things are slowing, inflation's taken off, interest rates rising, Chinese property market imploding. Dr. Copper caught a cold, and we have this very big dip going on right now. But when you're thinking about the next 10, 20 years and you're thinking about the situation for copper, definitely a future-facing metal, will be in high demand, huge growth in demand coming. Where will that copper come from? This is why BHP is starting to go out there and pick up some assets that they think are trading at a good price. So this sell-off, if we're thinking about this, multi-decade process that we're seeing with copper, what would you expect to occur? Well, ultimately, we could see copper head down into the buy zone of the most recent wave, couldn't we? So really, we are seeing a rally here. And look, it could bounce from here. There's no doubt about that, which is why we're starting to see some interest. But I think bigger picture, you do want to be prepared that this may not be it, which is why I'm saying when I'm showing you this next copper stock, it's the sort of thing that you're picking up some stock here at this opportunity. And if we get another leg down into that buy zone for copper, and you get the bounce out of there, as we've seen on multiple occasions over the last few decades, that's when you are definitely adding to positions and really going for it. But I think the world knows that this copper story is huge. So we have to be prepared that this crash that we saw recently, which has gone back to the midpoint, and we're seeing a bounce. I mean, that is it. That could be it. And we might see an ultimate breakout of copper down the track. That is definitely something that could happen. So I want to be, prepared for all outcomes, setting up opportunities as we can in this copper. So, just an interesting way to look at this, where you're seeing the very long-term trends that are taking shape. You're looking at it looking something like that, isn't it, in the very long term, that this is how copper moves. And if we're looking, very long term at this trend, it is starting to head back towards that area where you're getting interested. And really, I am thinking, down the track, that there will be a time when it breaks out above one of those highs and actually really does trend. I think that is the future for copper. So it is an area that you do want to be thinking seriously about if you are a long-term investor, considering building up positions, to build wealth over time, rather than just looking for quick trading opportunities. So this is Sanfire Resources, SFR. Look, they had that big discovery years ago, the DeGrussa mine over in Western Australia, very high grade copper. And they've really been using the cash flows from that to then start buying assets around the world over the last few years, which has, really been, I think, a great thing to be doing. They've got an operation in Spain. They're also working on a mine in Botswana that will be coming online, 70% complete, in the next few years. That will be up and running. Really the big growth in their production. This is a $2 billion company, hundreds of millions of dollars of cash on hand, very big uplift in production. And look, it is copper focused, but you're talking about, 66% copper, and then the next biggest being zinc, and a few other things in there, quite a bit of silver as well, and lead, I believe. So, it's multiple commodities, but very copper centric. It is a company that I think, if you're looking at that future facing, if you're wanting a company that is established, that has, big projects up and coming, will really be around for a long time, and will reap benefits if copper does take off over the next few years. It's this sort of company. And I guess if a BHP is sniffing around Oz Minerals, can't get that, are these guys the next on the list? Who knows? So I just want to show you the technical situation from a very long-term perspective. This is an annual chart showing you really every single bar you see here is actually 1 year's worth of trading, right? So this is actually going back to 2009. And the reason I'm doing that is that, it really has been going sideways for a long time. Really, you could look at this annual bar here back in 2010, and all of that price action is really related to that bar. So how I would look at things just very quickly would be to actually look at that range and notice the way that prices are moving, back and forth through the point of control of that range, which you can see has been support on many occasions. And, coming out of that buy zone back to the point of control, tried to get away here. You can see 25% above, lots of resistance back to the point of control. So here we're seeing, we are seeing another bounce out of this buy zone of that range. But the major thing I want you to focus on is that we saw, you can see that green diamond there. We saw the annual buy pivot last year. So that's the first good sign after, multiple years of heading nowhere. And with the weakness that we're seeing, it's actually heading, into the buy zone of this wave here. And I'll go in shorter term. If I look at the range that it's traded in over the last couple of years to create that annual buy pivot, I'm looking at the buy zone of that. And you can see prices finding support and starting to turn back up again from here. So this is the sort of spot that I see as an opportunity. So if we now look at this in terms of the monthly charts, you can see here, I'm just going to look at this whole range down from the high and what it's done. And you can see there coming right into that buy zone. And this month is shaping up as a potential monthly buy pivot out of that buy zone, which is interesting. That was a great arrow. And also what I want you to note is the movement after we've had this rally, and this is one I really enjoy, is the ABC. So from the high, we've had what is the A leg down to there. The B leg doesn't make it as high as the top of the A leg. You can see it then fails below, right? That's the C leg. And then when it turns back up, that's what is the ABC overlap. So it's setting itself up quite nicely to be a little ABC buy signal there. So if you're thinking about this very long term, you're picking it up where it has bounced from many times in the last decade. It's a company that's also, working on really uplifting. It's been spending all of its cash on going out and buying these mines, setting itself up for the future. We have Spain really uplifting production next year. Botswana, 70% complete. This is a company that in a few years could be really kicking some goals. So this recent weakness is setting up that buying opportunity at a pretty good level. And you can imagine if you bought this stock years ago, you're not very happy, are you? Buying it in 2013 at $8 and it's now $4 or $5. So I think this is a sort of company that, could be in for potentially in multiple years threatening the upside. On the downside, I don't really want to see it heading back below that low. Back below $3. The overall structure of this thing doesn't look that good. So I'd be a bit wary of carrying it past there. But therein lies the opportunity where you say to yourself, well, what's my risk reward? I can be entering here at $5. I'm out at $2.50, let's say. So I'm risking 50% of my money. What's the upside for this stock if copper takes off over the next 5-10 years and this stock is producing heaps and silver takes off, for example, and zinc, and all of a sudden you're sitting on a company that is just kicking goals, making huge amounts of money. So your upside is many multiples, and your downside is 50% of your money. So for me, that's not a bad situation in the right space. I think it's an interesting one, but again, going back to copper, do we see another leg down to that major buy zone? That's possible. You're looking at copper as a case, long-term, but I still think you're looking at copper as a long-term, very big opportunity. All right, that's enough for today. I shall come back with more next week.